You wake up cold. It's the middle of winter. The temperature is well below freezing, and you are not wearing a thick coat made by a factory. You are not in a heated house. You are a human being living 40,000 years ago, and somehow you are about to survive a night that would kill most modern people in their sleep. How? The answer is one of the most overlooked survival stories in human history, and it explains why we conquered the entire planet while stronger, faster, better armed animals stayed exactly where they started. For most of the last 100,000 years, large parts of the world were locked in an ice age. Glaciers covered northern Europe and Asia. Winters were brutal, long, and lethal. And yet, right in the middle of that frozen world, humans didn't just cling on, they spread. They moved north into territory that should have been impossible for a tropical ape from Africa to occupy. So, what did they actually do all day to stay alive? Let's start with what we know for certain. The human body is built for the heat of Africa. We have almost no fur. We're terrible at conserving warmth compared to a wolf or a bear. By every rule of biology, we should have frozen to death the moment we left the tropics. But archaeology tells a different story. In sites across Russia, Ukraine, and Central Europe, researchers have found human settlements dating back more than 30,000 years, deep inside the Ice Age, thriving in places where the winter could drop to minus 20 degrees or colder. The first clue is in the needles. In 1988, archaeologists working in Siberia and other Ice Age sites uncovered something tiny and astonishing. Sewing needles carved from bone, some over 30,000 years old, with carefully drilled eyes for thread. Think about what that means. These people weren't just draping animal skins over their shoulders, they were tailoring. They were cutting hide to shape and stitching fitted, layered clothing that sealed in body heat. A loose fur keeps you warm standing still. A sewn, fitted garment keeps you alive walking through a blizzard. That single invention, the needle, may have done more to spread humans across the planet than any weapon ever did. But clothing was only half the battle. The second clue comes from the ground itself. At a site in Ukraine, archaeologists found homes built from the bones of mammoths, hundreds of them, giant curved tusks forming archways, heavy leg bones stacked into walls, the whole structure likely covered with hides to form a dome. These weren't temporary shelters thrown up overnight. Building one took the bones of dozens of mammoths and enormous coordinated effort. These were engineered, insulated, semi-permanent winter houses built by people we still imagine as primitive cavemen. And inside those homes was the third clue: fire. Not a random campfire, but managed hearths, deliberately placed, sometimes dug into the floor and lined with bone, which burns hotter and longer than wood in a place where trees were scarce. Fire wasn't just warmth, it was light through the long, dark winter. It was a way to cook tough, frozen meat into something digestible. It was protection, and crucially, it was a gathering point. Everything social happened around that fire. So let's reconstruct a day. You wake up before dawn inside a mammoth bone dome, several people pressed close together under heavy furs, the hearth still glowing from the night before. Someone feeds the fire. You eat dense, fatty meat, because in the cold, your body burns enormous amounts of energy just to stay warm. Breakfast isn't a snack, it's fuel. You need far more of it than you would in a warm climate, and almost all of it is meat and fat, because in an ice age winter, there are no fruits, no vegetables, almost nothing growing. Then comes the work, and here the cold changes everything. You don't wander out casually. A small group bundles into layered, sewn clothing and heads out to hunt, because in this world the big animals are the supermarket: mammoth, bison, reindeer, wild horse. These animals are walking stockpiles of meat, fat, hide, bone, and sinew. A single successful hunt could feed a group for weeks because the cold itself becomes your refrigerator. Meat buried in frozen ground or packed in snow keeps for a long time. So you don't hunt every day. You hunt big and you hunt rarely. The hunt is not the reckless charge from the movies. It's patient, coordinated, and intelligent. People drive animals toward natural traps, river crossings, narrow valleys, steep drops. They use spears and later spear throwers that multiply the force of a throw. It's dangerous, and it's occasional. And when it works, the entire camp's mood transforms. Back at camp, the rest of the day is filled with the unglamorous, skilled work that actually keeps everyone alive. Someone scrapes a hide clean and works it soft for clothing. Someone repairs a torn seam with a bone needle. Someone carves new spear points, naps fresh blades from stone, twists plant fiber or sinew into cord. Children are kept close to the warmth. This isn't idle. This is the maintenance of survival, the constant repair of the thin layer of technology standing between a soft tropical ape and a frozen death. And then, just like every other group of humans across history, when the work is done, they don't simply collapse into sleep. They gather around the fire, they talk, they repair bonds. Because in a frozen world with no money and no safety net, the only thing standing between you and death in the next emergency is the people sitting beside you. If the hunt fails, you survive on their generosity. If you're injured, you survive on their care. So you invest in those people. You tell stories. You laugh. You pass down knowledge about animals and weather and where the herds move. The kind of knowledge that takes a lifetime to gather and a single conversation to share. And here is the part that should genuinely change how you see these people. They made art in the middle of all this. In the very same ice age, in caves and camps across Europe, people carved figurines, engraved patterns into bone, and painted animals on stone walls by firelight. Cold, hungry, fighting for survival in a frozen world, and still they found the time and the will to make beautiful things that did nothing to keep them alive. Survival was never the whole point. Even at the harshest edge of human existence, people needed meaning, not just heat and meat. Then the long night comes. In an Ice Age winter, darkness can last 16 hours or more. You sleep close together for warmth, the fire banked low, the dome holding in the heat your bodies and your hearth have built. And in the morning, against every expectation of biology, you wake up alive. Not because you were stronger than the cold, you weren't, but because you were smarter than it. This is the real story of how humans took the planet. We didn't beat the Ice Age with fur or fangs or raw strength. We beat it with sewn clothing, engineered shelter, controlled fire, stored food, and deep cooperation. We are a tropical animal that talked, built, and stitched its way into the coldest places on Earth. Every other animal had to wait for evolution to slowly give it a thicker coat over thousands of generations. We just made the coat. In a single lifetime. With a needle made of bone. So the next time you zip up a winter jacket without a second thought, remember what it actually represents. 40,000 years ago, someone sat by a fire in a house made of mammoth bones, freezing, and invented the idea that a human could simply build whatever the world refused to give them. That idea never went away. It's the reason you're warm right now, and it's the reason we're here at all.